Weddings are supposed to be the best day of your life. Flowers, cake, happy tears, you know the drill. But sometimes, the best day of someone's life becomes the worst day of everyone else's. Today we have 6 wedding stories so unhinged, so audacious, that each one ends with an update that somehow makes it worse. Or, in one case, makes it asterisk chef's kiss asterisk perfect. Story 6 has a twist so good, I almost didn't believe it. Stick around. Let's get into it. Our first story comes from a bride who thought the hardest part of wedding planning was the seating chart. She had no idea her mother was about to make that chart completely irrelevant. So I'm getting married in 6 weeks. My mom and I have always had a rocky relationship. She's the kind of person who needs to be the most important person in every room. I thought I'd managed it. Assigned her a lovely seat at the head table, gave her a small speech role, even let her pick the centerpiece flowers. Then came the rehearsal dinner. About 20 minutes in, my mom stands up, taps her glass, and gives a toast. Fine. Except the toast turned into a 15-minute speech about how she always knew my fiancé wasn't good enough for me, how she'd privately hoped I'd reconnect with my college ex, and, I am not exaggerating, she ended it by sliding a printed letter across the table to my fiancé titled, quote, "Things you should know before you commit." I watched his face go white. His entire family was there. I walked her out of the restaurant personally. I told her the wedding was off limits, unless she gave a full, private apology to my fiancé and agreed to have 0 speaking moments at the ceremony. She called me dramatic and said she was just being honest. I uninvited her the next morning. The family fallout was immediate and catastrophic. 3 aunts called me. My dad called me twice. Everyone said I'd regret it forever. Here's where it gets good. 3 weeks later, my fiancé found something that changed everything. He'd actually read the letter my mom slid to him, and buried on page 2 was an accidental confession that she had sabotaged a job opportunity for him 2 years ago by calling his would-be employer. He showed me the email chain he'd quietly tracked down. It was real. My mom did not attend the wedding. We got married on a Saturday, in the most peaceful ceremony of my life. She sent a card. We haven't opened it. Host verdict, she didn't uninvite her mother for being embarrassing. She uninvited her for being dangerous, and the update proved it. Not the villain you expected. Drop it in the comments. This next one flips the script entirely. Our narrator isn't the wronged party, or at least, that's not how the story starts. I'm the groom. About 4 months before our wedding, my fiancé and I booked a photographer. He was incredible, reasonably priced, and had a 2-year wait list. We got lucky with a cancellation slot. The contract was in my name, because my fiancé asked me to handle the vendor logistics. Then, 2 months out, my fiancé's older sister decided she wanted him for her own engagement shoot on our wedding date. My fiancé, without telling me, called the photographer and told him there'd been a change of plans and the wedding was postponed. The photographer, being professional, released our slot to the sister. I found out when I emailed him a shot list and he replied confused, saying he thought we'd canceled. My fiancé's explanation: my sister needed him more, we can find someone else. 4 months of planning, a non-refundable deposit, and 8 weeks before the wedding. I was, and I want to be precise here, absolutely not okay. I called the photographer back, explained there'd been a miscommunication, and asked if our slot was still available. It was not. The sister had already signed. My fiancé said I was overreacting, and that I could just find someone on Instagram. I want to be honest, I considered calling off the engagement for about 48 hours. We went to couples counseling instead, specifically around the question of whether my fiancé consults me before making decisions that affect us both. The update, counseling worked sort of. We did get married, 6 weeks late because we pushed the date to get the photographer back when a new slot opened. Here's the twist nobody expected. At the rescheduled wedding, the sister showed up 2 hours late, flustered, and announced her engagement was off. The photographer she'd stolen our slot for never even delivered her photos. Still hasn't. We have ours framed in the hallway. Every time the sister visits, she stares at them. Host verdict. The fiancé was genuinely in the wrong here, but the update delivered its own justice without him having to do a single petty thing. The universe sometimes handles it. Agree or disagree, comments are open. If the last story was about a groom who stayed quiet, this one is about a best man who absolutely did not. My best friend and I have been close since we were kids. When he got engaged, he asked me to be best man on day one. I spent 4 months writing a speech, funny, heartfelt, the right balance. I sent him a draft 3 weeks before the wedding like he asked. The bride read it and vetoed it. Completely. Her reason? I included a story about the time my friend got lost on a hiking trip and had to be rescued by park rangers. She said it made him look foolish. He called me embarrassed and said I could stand up there but just say something short. I pushed back. He said, please, just let it go. At the reception, the bride's brother gave an approved speech. It was 4 minutes of inside jokes nobody got. Then the bride's mother spoke for 11 minutes about the bride's childhood. Then they called me up, and the bride gave me a pointed look that very clearly said, keep it brief. I kept it brief. I said 3 sentences. I sat down. And then, and I want to be clear that I did not plan this, my friend's father leaned over to me and said, loudly enough for the table to hear, that's it. He told me you had a great one, and something in me I stood back up. I asked the DJ to cut the music. And I gave the whole speech. Ranger rescue story and all. The room laughed so hard the bride's mother was crying, the good kind. The bride did not speak to me for 3 weeks. Update, my friend called me 2 months later. He said the video of the speech was the thing he watches when he has a bad day, and that his wife had come around, she'd even admitted the Ranger story was funny. He also told me, quietly, that the approved speeches rule had been a demand she'd made that he'd been too nervous to fight. They're in counseling now, not about me, about the pattern. Host verdict, was he wrong to defy the ban? Technically, yes. Was the speech the least of this couple's problems? Also, yes. The comment section is going to have opinions, let's hear them. Now we slow down. Because this story isn't about pettiness. It's about a genuinely impossible choice, and the narrator isn't sure they made the right call even now. I work in local event planning, not for my coworker's wedding, just adjacent to the industry. About 10 days before her wedding, I was doing a site visit at a venue complex across town when I overheard staff talking about a venue in our area that had abruptly closed. Broke a contract with a couple, just shut the doors, no notice. When they mentioned the name, my stomach dropped. It was my coworker's venue. Here's my problem, my coworker and I are not close. We're friendly but not friends. She had not told me where her venue was. I'd just overheard her mention the name at a work lunch once. She was, from what I could tell, completely unaware. And she was leaving for a destination, bachelorette trip the next morning. I had 2 options. Say nothing and hope she found out through official channels before the wedding. Or tell her now, 10 days out, and blow up what was supposed to be a joyful pre-wedding week. I told her. I messaged her that night with everything I knew and the contact number I'd got. She did not respond for 6 hours. When she did, it was one word, confirmed. She found a backup venue within 4 days, smaller, different vibe, but available. She had to redesign every decoration. She lost partial deposits. The bachelorette trip was cut short. For a month, she barely spoke to me at work. I think she blamed the messenger. Update, 8 weeks after the wedding, she stopped by my desk with a coffee and a card. The card said the backup venue turned out to be a converted greenhouse that her new husband had actually loved more than the original. She included a wedding photo. She's still not my best friend. But she looked me in the eye and said, I'm glad you told me. That was enough. Host verdict, she could have stayed out of it. She didn't. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you, for a while. This one's not really about audacity. It's about decency. Make of that what you will. All right. We're back in petty territory, and I am so glad. My brother and his girlfriend of 3 years broke up 4 months before my wedding. Messy split, his choice, her heartbreak. I liked her. I still like her. But she remained on my guest list because, frankly, she was invited before they split, and she was my friend too. She didn't come to the wedding. Too painful, totally understandable. But 2 days before the ceremony, a package arrived at my parents' house. It was a handmade quilt, hours of work, our wedding colors, our initials, a note that said she'd started it before the breakup and wanted us to have it anyway. I was genuinely moved. My brother found out and called me within the hour. He said accepting the gift was taking her side and that I should mail it back. I told him I didn't realize wedding gifts were a battlefield. He said, and I quote, I said she made us a quilt on our wedding. I'm keeping the quilt. He did not speak to me at the reception. He gave a toast. We'd asked him to, but did not look at me or my spouse once. Our mother noticed. Several photos were awkward. Here is the update, and it is *so good. 6 weeks after the wedding, my brother started dating someone new. He brought her to a family dinner. My spouse and I were there. The new girlfriend came into the living room, saw the quilt draped over the couch, and said out loud, with zero context, "Oh, that's so beautiful. Where did you get it?" My brother had to explain the whole thing to his new girlfriend at the dinner table while my spouse and I said absolutely nothing and ate our pasta. We have not moved the quilt. Host verdict, she kept a handmade gift from someone she cared about. The brother made it weird. The quilt stays. I will not be taking questions. Comment below if you agree. And here it is. Story 6. I promised you a twist you wouldn't see coming. I kept my promise. I run a small catering business on the side. It's not my full-time job, but it's legitimate, licensed, the whole deal. A woman I knew vaguely through a community group hired me for her wedding reception. 60 guests, buffet style, garden party setup. We signed a contract. I collected a 50% deposit. Week of the event, she asked me to arrive early to help with setup. I did. And immediately something felt off. There was no ceremony space. No efficient prep. No wedding party setup. I asked her assistant about the ceremony timing and got a vague answer. About an hour before guests arrived, I overheard the client on the phone say, word for word, "Don't worry, everyone thinks it's a wedding. They'll all show up." I pulled her aside. I asked her directly, "Is this actually a wedding reception?" She paused too long and then told me the truth. It was a surprise 65th birthday party for her father. He hated being the center of attention, so she told everyone, including him, it was a wedding, planning to reveal it once he was captive in the room surrounded by loved ones. Now, the food was the same. The setup was the same. My contract said event catering. I had no legal issue here. But 60 people had traveled, some from out of state, believing they were attending a wedding. They'd bought gifts. They'd made arrangements. I told her, I'll stay and cater, but I'm not comfortable being part of deceiving 60 people. She told me to mind my business. I catered the event. But when the father arrived and she started her big reveal speech, he burst into genuine, overwhelmed tears. Not upset tears. He looked around at 60 people who traveled for him, and he absolutely fell apart with gratitude. Half the room was crying within 2 minutes. I cried into a tray of bruschetta. I'm not proud of it. The update came in a voicemail. She left me 2 weeks later. She said her father had called it the best day of his life. She asked if she could rebook me for whatever the next fake event is. I have since agreed to cater her mother's surprise retirement party, which guests are being told is a neighborhood zoning meeting. Host verdict, I cannot in good conscience call anyone the villain here. The audacity was real. The outcome was wholesome. And the neighborhood zoning meeting is going to be catered with full bruschetta. Sometimes the audacity is just love in disguise. You're welcome. 6 weddings. 1 quilt that refuses to move. 1 ranger who accidentally saved a marriage. And 1 caterer who cried into bruschetta, and honestly, same. Here's my question for the comments. Which of these 6 people had the most audacity, and were they wrong for it? Drop your rankings below, because I genuinely cannot decide. If you made it to Story 6, you already know this channel is your people. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Next week, we're covering roommates who went to absolutely unhinged lengths to win an argument. And one of the updates involves a spreadsheet that will change how you see conflict forever. See you there.